I am Shaban, professor here in Development Studies, and today I am very happy to inform you that the topic which actually we have chosen for this foundation course, religion and development, and then actually the politics associated with it. Today with me is Professor Ram Punyani. I think that many of you may be knowing him, and he has enormously worked on this issue, on communalism in India, religion and development, and how actually harmony can be brought between the religious communities. I will introduce what I actually, before I introduce, I will request you to kindly switch off your mobile and laptops if you have, because they may be making sound. So it will be actually interfering with the guest lecture. So please switch it off. And second thing, that there are some books which Professor Punyani has written. Actually, he has written almost 13 books. So like he writes like many books, like Communalism Explained, Terrorism Explained, Harmony Tales. These actually books are priced at 10 rupees, a small book. They may be available, or they are available basically at the counter. Some of you who are interested, you can see these things, you can buy them. That may be, they are kept there. Ram Punyani Sahab, basically he was a professor in Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay. He was in biomedical engineering, and in 2004 he took BRS, voluntary retirement. And because actually he was feeling that social urge, that kind of urge, that there is a need to work for the communal harmony, the way politics is going on, the way the segregation and alienations of the communities is taking place. So since then he has involved himself intensively in human rights activities and communal harmony building activities. He has been spreading actually these things. Actually he has written many books with the SAGE, very academic books which have been published. I will come to that. But he has been also awarded many actually distinct awards, like National Communal Harmony Award in 2007, Indira Gandhi National Integration Award 2006, Mascio Memorial Foundation Humanitarian Award 2005, Association of Communal Harmony in Asia, ACHA, Star Award for Peace and Communal Harmony in 2004, Maharashtra Foundation Award for Social Awareness about Threat of Communal Politics, 2002. And beside that, as I told, that many books which have come out from the SAGE, and actually this actually have been much liked by the academicians, and the teaching, and there is a textbooks in many universities. These books are Indian Democracy, Pluralism and Minorities, Communalism, India's Nemesis, Communalism, What is False, What is True, Communalism Illustrated Primer, Communal Politics, Fact versus Myth, Terrorism, Fact versus Myth, Second Assassination of Gandhi. So like this actually has 13 books, well documented, from the like SAGE and others. Besides that, many pamphlets, and you know that actually he is also managing many websites also on this issue. So I'm very happy that he is here today. On our short request last week, he could accept. He was traveling. He said that at 11 o'clock I am coming to Mumbai, and at 2 o'clock I will be there, Shaban, for the lecture. Thank you very much, sir, for this gesture. So now I am handing it over to Professor Ram Punyani. Please, sir.
Good afternoon, friends. First of all, thanks a lot for inviting me, Professor Shaban, and giving such a generous introduction about mine. Now, of course, as he has introduced you, that I was earlier teaching in IIT, and what prompted me to come to this area was a very specific thing, and that is what happened in Bombay. Hello. I was telling that what prompted me to come to this area was something which happened in Bombay, and I hope you remember that Bombay suffered communal violence. Basically, of course, you must have laughed at him, but my basic issue was that those people who are not interested in listening to me can quietly walk out. Don't worry about the attendance. You will get the attendance, okay? Because I want that if you are interested, be here, listen to me, and if you don't think these things are important, you can very well switch off and go enjoy your coffee or whatever. But I somehow don't like, I would like to communicate with you, but I won't like talking amongst yourself, which is something probably distracts my attention. I don't know what happens to you, but it distracts my attention. Okay, sorry for this. Now, friends, basically what prompted me was, if you notice that from last, I was talking about Mumbai violence 92-93, and that was also aftermath of that Babri demolition. I hope you remember all that. And before Babri demolition, there was some communal violence. But last 30 years, we have seen that in the world, there are two major types of violence, right? One violence takes place suddenly in the form of blast. What is that called? Terrorism. And second violence takes place between two communities. They think that Hindus, Christians, that there is a violence against, they are doing violence against each other. Now, this is what they call communalism. Communalism on one side, terrorism on other. So what connects the two? What connects the two is that both of them have the label of religion. Both of them have the label of religion. Like people believe that terrorism is because of one religious community. I hope you got my point. Or should I be more frank than this? You got my point, yeah? That people think one religious community, if you read Quran, if you do this, you suddenly start taking up bombs and exploding them. So that is one understanding. Second is there that two communities are fighting. People think that there is a conflict between religious values. Now friends, here I am here to tell you, number one, that morality of religions does not clash. Okay, what did I say? Morality of religions does not clash, and this I have to demonstrate. This I have to demonstrate. I have stated it, I would like to demonstrate. Can you tell me which are the three major religions of India? Hinduism, Islam and Christianity. Okay. Now what I'll do, I will tell the religious value from one religion each. Try to guess what is that value. The first value which I am saying, and I'll have to translate it into English also, because some of the friends may not be knowing English, I can make out, may not be knowing Hindi or Sanskrit. So that value which I am saying, that value which I am saying is from Hinduism. Of course, I have leaked the paper myself. I was going to ask you which religion, but that from Hinduism, the religion is Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. What is that? Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. What does it mean? Let whole world is my family. Now, so if I am a Hindu, will I be hating the people of other religions? Not at all. Because why? I regard, my religion teaches me that they are a part of my family. Now let's get to the second one. And now here I will like you to guess from which religion I am saying that. And that value is love thy neighbor. Christianity. Of course, I can guess your level of intelligence is very high, because even before I completed the sentence, you gave the answer. That is very intelligent thing. What is the full sentence? Love thy neighbor as thy own self. Second observation is, I can make out you people are also very mature. I am not trying to flatter you. This is my observation. How? Because once I went to some school, younger children, boys, girls, 9, 10, there I said, love thy neighbor, and they said, very good idea. And anyway, fine. So friends, this is what basic point is, love thy neighbor as thy own self. Okay. The third one, the guess becomes very easy. A person whose neighbor is hungry, a person whose neighbor lives on empty stomach, for him the gates of Jannat will never open. Islam. Okay, very easy to guess. Now here in Christianity and Islam, the definition of neighborhood comes very close to what we say Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. The whole earth they try to incorporate in that. So friends, first point is very clear that moral values of religions are not conflicting. If at all they are supplementing each other. They are supplementing each other. Then where does the problem come? Problem comes with the identity aspects of religion. Now identity aspects of religion when I say, so I am trying to classify in a commonsensical sense religion into two. One is morality. Second is identity. Now morality overlaps. Identity is diverse. Like Hindus have one diversity. Hindus have one identity. They have places of worship. Muslims have different places of worship. Christians have different places of worship. Hindus have holy books. Right? There are many. I won't like you to recount that. I know you must know most of them. Muslims have one holy book. Which is that? Christians, Bible. Now sometimes I keep thinking about these holy books. Professor Shaban just told you that I have written some books. Sorry to be talking about my own self. These books are not holy because they are coming from the average people. What are the holy books? Coming from top. Very good, no problem. But there is another problem I have with the holy books. Problem is that we regard them as very holy. Very holy. So much holy that we are able to spill. We are ready to spill each other's blood in the name of that book. But what is inside the book? I don't know. Who cares? Right? So this is what goes about the holy book, right? So this is identity part. My places of worship, places of pilgrims, then there is something called rituals. Rituals are performed in all the religion. What are the times when rituals are performed? What are the occasions? What? At the time of birth. Let's go in a proper sequence. Don't begin from death and come to birth. Let's go from birth and then very pleasant thing called marriage. I hope it is a pleasant thing. Anyway, and then the death, right? So this is when rituals are performed. And who performs the rituals? Clergy. Clergy. There you will say Panditji, Maulana Sahab, Padri Sahab, and Granthiji and all that, right? So these are the holy people. They are supposed to be the experts of their religion. There are some other people also in the religion. Now I have to go back slightly into the medieval time because I am going to use a word called Sant. I think I will request my friends knowing Hindi to explain it to the friends who don't know Hindi, right? After the class, Sant, saint. In English there is saint, but this is not exact translation. Sant, like when I talk about Sant, I want to be a bit careful because today also there are many Sant, many saints. They are 5-star, 7-star, somebody owning 40,000 crores, another owning 12,000 crores, means below 1,000 crores they don't come. Like, but I am talking of the saints like Kabir, Tukaram, Namdev, Narsi Mehta, who came from poorer low caste sections of society and who expressed the sigh of the oppressed. Okay, so I'll just one point I will like it to make clear to you, that saints, my saints, Kabir, Tukaram, Namdev, Narsi Mehta, they were harping on the morality of religion. They were uniting the people on the basis of morality. And the clergy was dividing the people according to religious identity. Very difficult to remember. Morality. Who is associated with morality? Saints. But again, medieval saints, qualification, right? I'm not talking of other saints, with due apologies. Because otherwise then somebody will say, oh, somebody is teaching me exercises, they are so nice. Somebody is teaching me the art, great, etc., etc. So that is not my point. I should be very clear about what I'm saying. So morality goes with sants and identity is harped upon by the clergy. Now clergy is a name, I think you all must be knowing about clergy. Hello, 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 clergy, is there in every religion, okay? Now, so clergy and saints. Now, so friends, whatever disputes take place, they are around the identity of the religion. Two examples two examples. One example, I hope you know Taliban idiots in Bamiyan. I'm deliberately using the word Taliban idiots in Bamiyan. They say, hello, Lord Gautam Buddha statue is here. We Muslims don't believe in statue, idol worship. So we'll destroy it. So is it related to morality or identity? Morality. Now there is another person, I'll be a bit political also, you'll forgive me for that. Another person whom you have to guess, he generally used to take out Rath Yatras. These days, of course, he's in a bit of eclipse because of his own chela overtaking him. Right. Okay. Right. Fine. Now, he said, my Lord was born precisely at the spot where Maulvi Sahab is giving azan in Babri Mosque. Unless I destroy that, my Ram Bhakti will not be complete. And rest of the story you know what happened. Rath Yatra used to go like this, rivers of blood used to follow that. So Taliban, Rath Yatri, they are resorting to morality or identity? Identity. So friends, religion is a very sacred thing. Religion teaches me to transcend myself from my base thing to superhuman and better values, where I am able to love the whole humanity. And that's what my saints, Kabir, Tukaram, Namdev, whatever little I remember, that's what they used to teach. So friends, this is as far as religion is concerned. Please remember, religion's morality has nothing to do with the violence which is going on there today. Number one. Second, of course, then I get frightened to say those names also. But don't worry, let's share the fright with each other. Whenever we share, that will become lighter. There is a person called Osama bin Laden. Thankfully, he is dead. And people thought he is a follower of Islam. Of course, we'll see whether he was a follower of Islam or he was a follower of somebody else, some secret agency, I don't know. I'll come to that. Now, and similarly, of course, there is another person, and he is Swami Asimanand. Swami Asimanand, currently he is cooling his heels in the jails. That also I will come to that. And they also think that, oh, these people are religious people, something holy must be there. Even if a bomb is getting blasted, it must be sacred. Of course, I don't know. So friends, I must submit that this is not, there is some politics behind that. And that there is, in the communal violence, Hindu, Muslim, Hindu, Christian, it is not because of religion. There is some hidden politics behind that. And the blast which takes place because of Al-Qaeda, because of Ajmal Kasab, or because of somebody, a blast taking and killing the Prime Minister, ex-Prime Minister of Pakistan, Benazir Bhutto, all these are motivated by some politics. Summarily speaking, that is a politics of oil control. I'll come to that. Oil, very precious. So somebody has to control it. And who can control except those people sitting in Washington? I hope you can guess that. We call them Uncle Sam. Generally we say, our uncle is so nice. But here there is a problem with the uncle. Whether he is nice or not, I don't know. Anyway, so friends, this thing, I will begin that India is a country with the richest diversity. Right from medieval times, people of all religions, people of all regions, people with different cultures, languages, they were interacting with each other. I will try to give some examples of that. In medieval times, there was no communal violence. People have been fighting with each other throughout history for the sake of wealth, for the sake of power. Incidentally, I have said two things. What did I say? People have been fighting for wealth and power. But in medieval times, this type of label of religion on power was not there. Some of the examples are in order. Now, today, of course, we feel I'll be very frank with you, you'll pardon me. Sometimes I'll be dragging some politicians also, some religion's name I'll be saying. But with due respect, I respect all the religions, I have respect for everybody. But for the sake of demonstration, I may have to take some names. Now, of course, I don't know whether you see the serials or not. Of course, there are some serials which, at least in my family, my mother, mother-in-law, they are glued to some serials. Saas bhi kabhi bahu thi. There are other serials to which younger people are glued. And that is what? Jodha Akbar. Jodha Akbar. Recently I was in one school. So one girl of 9th standard tells me, uncle or sir, whatever he called me, I forget. Sir, that in Jodha Akbar, Akbar is shown to be a very cruel king. He is very cruel towards everybody. Then I said, what a change in times. When I was of your age or slightly elder than you, we had a very lovely film called Mughal-e-Azam. I hope you remember Mughal-e-Azam. Now people say, oh, Muslim kings destroyed temples. They converted by force. They were against Hindus. When I see Mughal-e-Azam, my whole perception was different. Because right in the castle of Akbar, his wife, Jodha Bai, builds a temple for Lord Krishna. People are talking that Muslim kings destroyed temples, so they are so very bad. But here I am seeing a king, there is a temple right in his house. And not only there is a temple, when his wife celebrates Krishna's birthday, what is it called? Krishna Janmashtami. That huge king, he is participating it and he is giving jhula to Lord Krishna's this cradle. That was one thing I saw. And in that again I think about Akbar. People are saying Akbar very bad against Hindus and all that. But do you remember Akbar had nine gems, jewels in his court? Some of them were Hindus. Can you tell the names? Birbal, Tansen, Raja Todarmal. Okay, let me tell you, Raja Todarmal was the most important courtier of Akbar. Why was he most important? Revenue. Because Raja Todarmal was doing the same thing in Akbar's court. Raja Todarmal was doing the same thing in Akbar's court, which P. Chidambaram is doing in Manmohan Singh's government. Wonderful. Right? Now, so that's Akbar. How it is presented, what message it will take. And then there is another serial which is going on. Bharat ka Mahan Saput Maharana Pratap. Now here I feel like becoming a journalist and resorting to time machine of H.G. Wells. I hope you heard that. H.G. Wells' brilliant time machine. I become a journalist. I go to Rana Pratap and I tell him, sir, in current times you are being projected as a great son of India, Bharat. So Maharana Pratap tells me, because I'm a journalist, so I'm a young man, I try to become a young man also. He says, young man, what is this India? What is this Bharat? Because I know only about Mewar and only I know about Delhi, and Delhi's King Akbar who is there. Right? Then I try to explain to him. Then he tells me, Rana Pratap himself tells me, yes, I had a battle with Akbar. This battle took place in the Maidan of Haldi Ghati. Then I go through the pages of history. I try to turn the pages of history, try to find out how was the battle of Haldi Ghati. And I found out that in the battle of Haldi Ghati, on one side there are Akbar's armies, other side there is Rana Pratap's armies. And to my surprise, Akbar himself is not there. Akbar is not there. Why? Because Akbar is represented by his commander-in-chief, Pradhan Senapati, called Raja Man Singh. Fantastic. So here is a Raja Akbar, and Raja Man Singh, he is being assisted by another person who I call as the lover prince of history. I hope you can guess again from Mughal-e-Azam, Shahzada Salim. So on this side there is Raja Man Singh and Shahzada Salim, and on this side there is Rana Pratap. Rana Pratap is assisted by none other than Hakim Khan Sur. If I get fainted, take care of me, right? people try to tell me that this is a battle between Hindus and Muslims. This is on both sides there are Muslims, on both sides there are Hindus. So I want to ask that why were kings fighting? Were they fighting? Of course, now I take the role of course I can't imitate that great actor of greatest times, Amitabh Bachchan, KBC, Kaun Banega Crorepati. He gives 4 options, I am giving you 2 options. Tell me, why were kings ruling? Option A, they were ruling for morality of religion. Option B, they were ruling for power and wealth. You have 1 lakh rupees. I don't have that money to give you. Okay. Right? Wonderful. So such a simple thing, and we have in mind that Hindus and Muslims, they were fighting with each other for the sake of religion. And that's how people take out their anger. Hey, these Muslim kings, very bad. They came, they destroyed our temples, so bad, and our religion got humiliated. Incidentally, I'll tell you one honest story. Once I happened to meet a historian from Pakistan, history teacher from Pakistan. I asked her, how is Mahmud Ghaznavi represented in your books? I hope you know that, Mahmud Ghaznavi. Most hated person who destroyed our Somnath temple, insulted our religion so bad. And there, I asked that historian, I asked that history teacher, how is Mahmud Ghaznavi presented in your history book? That teacher, she suddenly lit up, brightened up. She said, oh, Mahmud Ghaznavi, what a great Muslim king was he. I said, excuse me, why you think he was a great Muslim king? He said, in our Islam, idol worship is not allowed. So in order to break the idols, he came all the way from Ghazna to Somnath. I literally caught hold of her. And I said, madam, tell me, how far is Ghazna from Somnath? 2,000, 3,000 kilometers. And he came by road, that much I knew with confidence. And I said, if he's coming by road, anyway roads are not good today. How were the roads that time? Very bad. And how many temples might have been there on the way? There might have been thousands of temples. Because we are blessed with 33 crores gods and goddesses. Right? So, if there are 33 crores gods and goddesses, how many temples might be there on the way? So if he had to insult Hindu religion, was it necessary for him to come to all the way to Somnath? Or where he could have done what? Destroyed first 2 temples, bloated his chest, and I have destroyed Hindu faith. Now the other theory comes that he came here to insult our religion. Then again I ask the same thing, if he had to insult our religion, why he had to come to Somnath? There were Bamiyan Buddhas that time. Or did he know that should I leave this job to the Taliban idiots? I don't know. I don't know whether he was knowing the Jyotish Shastra, but anyway, that I don't know. Friends, basically, temples were destroyed, mosques were destroyed, churches were destroyed. They were built also by kings. Why? 2 reasons. One was that of wealth. And at that time when Mahmud Ghaznavi destroyed Somnath temple, there was a wealth of 151 crores of rupees in the form of 20,000 golden dinars, golden coins. Your mouth has watered or not? Mine has. Anyway, I don't hide my weaknesses. Is it believable? Is it believable that temples and holy places used to have wealth? They used to have or they have? They have. You must be knowing 3-4 years ago, one god died. I don't know, don't misunderstand me. One god died. And how much? Yeah, very correct. And how much wealth was there in his ashram? 40,000 crores, 40,000 crores. So if you renounce the world, you get the most of it. Excellent. But if you run after the money, you don't get anything. That's right. So friends, temples, mosques and churches, they were repositories of wealth. Kings, Hindu, Muslim, Christian, they destroyed these for the sake of wealth, number 1. Sometimes they destroyed to humiliate the defeated king. There is a book, there are two major articles, I will give you the reference on my email if you want, by Richard Eaton. Richard Eaton tells us, the title of the articles is Temple Destructions in Ancient India. What is that? Temple destruction in ancient India. Now I want to ask you, were there Muslim kings to destroy the temples in ancient India? When did Islam come into being? 7th century. So there were no Muslims, no Muslim marauders to destroy your temples. Then who destroyed? Richard Eaton proves that when two Hindu kings were fighting, hello, Hindu kings were fighting with each other? Yes, no. Muslim kings were fighting with each other? Or was it that I am a Hindu king in the history? He is a Hindu king. I tell him, hello, you Hindu, me Hindu, bhai bhai, no ladai. It was not like that. In front of power and wealth, everything else was secondary. So when two Hindu kings were fighting, the victor Hindu king used to demolish defeated Hindu king's Kuladevata temple. Now you explain this Kuldevata to your friends who don't know Hindi. Kuldevata, somehow, fortunately, we have no shortage of Kuldevatas. More the merry. Some things we have in plenty, and that we can share with others also if they want. Okay. Now so, this is how the temples were destroyed. And here the whole country is burning. Unless we build the temple there, our history will not be taken revenge of. Then I say, can you take revenge of the history? Whatever happened in past, are today's Muslims responsible for the acts of Aurangzeb? Can we take revenge of what Aurangzeb did? Number 2. And number 3, there are different interpretations of Aurangzeb. Here I am sure you will be saying, if I ask the question, who was the most cruel, most brutal, most fanatic, most anti-Hindu king, what will be the answer? Aurangzeb. And if I go in Pakistan, I reverse the question. I say, tell me who has been the greatest, noblest, most religious king? Aurangzeb. So same person. So whether the history can be taken revenge of, I don't know. Because as a man, again, I am scared if the revenge of history starts taking place. Because earlier, when the husband used to die, what used to happen? Wives used to be sati. Women can very well say, to take the revenge of history, we'll start sata. I'm scared. I'm really scared. I'll not go into that. Anyway, so this is, friends, one aspect of history, that past cannot be taken revenge of. So, temples on one side. Then second, they are very worried. These Muslim kings, sword in one hand and Quran in the other. They came. Then I ask myself, is this sword in one hand, Quran in the other, who will balance the horse? That's my question. Anyway, but that's how people believe, that they came and they spread the religion. Then I come to read one of the greatest historians of India, Romila Thopper. Romila Thopper tells us, kings were not interested in spreading their religion. None of the kings in the history spread his religion, barring one noble exception who comes from India, Orissa. The name of that king? Emperor Ashoka. Emperor Ashoka has been the only king in the history who spread his religion, but not with the help of sword. It was through preaching, it was through morality, it was through a particular type of appeal to the people's conscience that Buddhism spread in Southeast Asia. So this is religion. Then how did people become Muslims? If Muslim king, of course, I am simplifying, I am shortening because time is short. Every religion spreads by multiple mechanisms. Some people might have got scared. Some people might have anticipated reward. Sometimes people interacted and they converted. But the biggest cause of conversion to Islam was the caste system. Unfortunately, caste system is there, a big reality. We are trying to eradicate it, but jati nahi hai. It is stuck with us. So, and again we were talking of holy places. All of us want to go to holy places, at least before the exams or after the good results. And some people want to go in the regular life. So where were these Shudras going to? Which holy place they were going? they were not permitted to go to the temples. It was said that if they come to the temples, our gods may get polluted. So keep them away. And then these Shudras started going to another place which is called Dargah. Dargah of Sufi saint. Is there a distinction that Hindus can come, Muslims cannot come, Muslims can come, Hindus cannot come? Please note, Sufi tradition and Bhakti tradition are the greatest contribution of India's religion synthesis. And in India also, the maximum number of people turn to Islam because of the humanistic teachings of Sufi saints. This, of course, I can prove in different way, but in the recent times I'll prove. You can tell me who is one of the greatest music directors of Hindi film industry? Very good. Otherwise, of course, you are slightly more intelligent for me, because I was going to tell you who got 9 Oscar awards for his music, but of course, good, you guessed it right in the beginning. Now, A.R. Rahman. You know what was his earlier name? Dilip Kumar. Why did he convert to Islam and became Allah Rakha Rahman? Did Osama bin Laden came with a bomb, frightened him, you become Muslim, otherwise I'll kill you? Not at all. Friends, this was a matter coming from inside. Dilip Kumar had some family problem in the form of his father suffering from cancer. And during that period, he came in contact with a Sufi saint, because of which he took to Islam and became Allah Rakha Rahman. Now, another thing I'll tell you, there is a very great actor, Kamal Haasan. Am I right? Because recently, of course, especially boys must have noticed Shruti Haasan, without any confusion, right? Shruti Haasan also. Actually, initially, I was confused. I used to read it sometimes, Kamal Hassan. So I thought he's a Muslim. But later on, I did some research. I met his brother, Charul Hassan, and I came to know that they are Hindus who have kept their surname in the name of a Sufi saint whom their family respects. So Shruti Haasan, the latest on the color pages of your supplement of Times of India and other paper. Okay, right? Now this is what, friends, India had been. Thickly interacted. Of course, being in Maharashtra, I can't avoid the mention of one of the greatest kings of Maharashtra. Who's that? Shivaji Maharaj. Our Bombay's airport is named in whose name? Shivaji Maharaj. Our railway station is named in whose name? Shivaji Maharaj. Our big park is named in Shivaji Maharaj. And even our Vada Pav, that is also named after Shivaji. No problem, excellent. Right? Now, people try to tell me, at least those people who keep beating others in the name of Marathi, in the name of Hinduism, they keep beating others. I hope you can guess. Otherwise, if I get told directly, I may myself be getting beaten. I'm scared of my life. Okay, they try to tell us, Shivaji, anti-Muslim, very anti-Muslim. He is the one who protected Hindus. Then I go turn some pages, I come across one story. Shivaji is going to meet Afzal Khan on the horseback. There is no sword with him, and his bodyguard asks him, "Sir, why you are not carrying the sword?" So Shivaji says, there is an understanding between me and Afzal Khan that when we will meet, we will not be carrying any hathiyar, any arms with her. That bodyguard becomes worried. He says, "Sir, please get down." Shivaji obeys his bodyguard. Bodyguard, everybody has to obey. You must have seen that film, Bodyguard, how he controls the actor. Okay. So he says, "Sir, what is your height?" Shivaji says, "I may be 5 feet 4 inches. Then he asks, "What is the height of Afzal Khan?" He says, "Hey, he must be taller than 6 feet. Then the next question, "Sir, what is your body size?" Shivaji says, "Medium size." Then he says, "What is the size of Afzal Khan?" "Hey, Afzal Khan is a hefty Pathan." So bodyguard says that if he just embraces you tightly, he can kill you, Ram Nam. Sir, don't be innocent. भोले मत बनो, ये गुप्त हथियार साथ में लेकर जाओ. Take this secret weapon, which in English can be called iron claws. So far so good. The name of this bodyguard was Rustam-e Jaman. hold me if I fall down. Shivaji, bodyguard is Rustam-e-Jaman. Shivaji had 18 bodyguards. 12 of those bodyguards, they were Muslims. Shivaji's topmost official, his confidential secretary, his name was Maulana Haidar Ali. Now, this is how the composition was, and I'll quote you one book by a great historian called Athar Ali. Athar Ali analyzes the religious composition of Mughal dynasty. Religious composition of Mughal dynasty, and in that he tells the king who's regarded most anti-Hindu fanatic king, Aurangzeb, in his administration, 34% of the court officials, they were Hindus. One of them, Maharashtrians will remember very much, Raja Jai Singh, who used to come to meet Shivaji and have bargaining with him, etc., etc. Now, this is one aspect. Kings, kings, kings. How our history has become king-centric. How our history has become kings religious-centric. Because this happened after 1857. 1857, I don't have to recount you, that the Great Rebellion, British called it mutiny, we call it revolution, because peasants joined, landlords joined, kings joined. Now in this great revolution, you can tell me who lit the spark of this great revolution? Mangal Pandey. And who came to lead it? Bahadur Shah Zafar. Who were the associates of Bahadur Shah Zafar? Tatya Sahab, Tope, Nana Sahab, Peshwa, Jhansi ki Rani. Hindu Muslims came together, fought against the British Empire. British throne got shaken, and they said that if we have to rule in this part of the country, we must resort to the policy of divide and rule. Following that, they got history books commissioned by Eliot and Dawson and James Mill, and that history was presented as if king's religion is the focus of history. As we saw, for kings, what matters more is power. What matters more is wealth. Of course, recently the one Shekhar Kapoor serial is coming, Prime Minister. I don't know whether you have seen it or not. There is one, this Nawab of Junagadh, which is in Gujarat, which was in Gujarat, Junagadh. Now he is so much interested, he has to run away with all his wealth. And when he leaves the Junagadh, he takes away wealth, he takes away his favorite dogs and leaves behind one of his wives along with his son. And anyway, that's another part of the story. So king's focus was power and wealth. British historiography, communal historiography, presents it as if religion was a central focus of king's rule, while this is absolutely not true. And I have tried to demonstrate that few things. One or two more things I will talk about medieval India, then we'll come to today's time. In the same medieval India, as I was telling you, the two religions interacted with each other. Hinduism, Islam, and out of their synthesis came the great tradition of Bhakti on one side and Sufi on the other. Bhakti saints I have already named, and these saints had a very simple way of life, and they had a very simple definition of religion. They did not write big tomes on theology, philosophy of religion, what religion is not. They practiced religion in their life. That's why Sant Kabir summarizes the religion. Here, sorry to be a bit in Hindi. So what does he say? Pothi pad pad jagmua, pandit bhaya na koi. Dhai akhar prem ke padhe so pandit hoy. So this is a central message because of which Hindus and Muslims both were following Kabir. And this was the same value which was being followed by Sufi saints. Sufi saints, I must tell you one just incident about it. Near Bombay, there is a place called Kalyan. In Kalyan, there is a place called Haji Malang. Now, I also used to think like everybody, yeah, these dargahs are the places where Muslims worship, Muslims go. Once I took my family, I thought we will go and see around 15-20 years ago. What surprised me that in Dargah, as soon as I entered that, first I saw there some scattered pieces of coconut that rang the bell. Who offers coconuts? Hindus. After that I go and I saw there is a floral arrangement, Phoolon ki chadar. Who offers that? Muslims. So Muslims are also coming there, Hindus are also coming there, and the peak of the surprise for me was when I went, the chief of that dargah, the Mujawar, and the name of the Mujawar was Pandit Gopal Vishnu Ketkar. That was a limit for me to understand. We are thinking religion divides, but we are seeing that in our common practice, religion unites. Which part of religion unites? Morality. Which part of religion divides? Identity. And that's where now I will come to how this politics came into Indian society. One more thing we saw religious traditions. One or two more things I am tempted to tell you, because I think those of you who have come from outside Bombay or Maharashtra, you must have already realized that in our Mumbai, there is one popular food item, Vada Pav. Very nice. Now it has become Shiv Vada Pav. Be careful, huh? Shiv Vada Pav. Okay. Now, Vada Pav's pav came from Afghanistan. Inside there is vada. Vada is made of gram dal. Inside there is potato. Potato came from Spain. And then we put ginger for taste. And ginger, adrak, came from a country from where these days practically everything comes, original and duplicate both. China. From so many countries, so many things came, and a wonderful, lovely vada pav came into being. And similarly, of course, just I am returning from Hyderabad, as Shaban sir told you. In Hyderabad, I really gained some weight. Of course, you can see my size already. And how did I gain the weight? Because in biryani, very good. Then I investigated biryani, and I found out biryani came from Iran. In Iran, biryani was called biryan. We made it more tasty and called it biryani. Very good. Enjoy your biryani. I have no problems. Friends, today one thesis is common by Samuel Huntington, which is called Clash of Civilizations. Just you can do some web search. And there is another document from United Nations, which is called Alliance of Civilization. Samuel Huntington argued, what is the problem in the world? There is a Hindu civilization, there is a Muslim civilization, there is a Western civilization. They call themselves Western. They are slightly one up. There is a Western civilization, there is this civilization. That's why there is a problem. In contrast, United Nations document, Alliance of Civilizations, which is available on the web, tells us that human society has progressed only because of the alliances. And this happened very much in India also, where different cultures, different religions, different language came together, and we get beautiful things like vada pav. So good things from outside came here. Good things from here went outside, like our mangoes, bananas, and our elementary basic arithmetic. That great discoveries of arithmetic which took place in India. That's why in Arabic, the science of arithmetic is called Hinsa. Hinsa means what? Coming from Hind, coming from this. So this interaction of civilizations constantly takes place. That's why our Rig Ved has a beautiful sentence. What is that sentence? Ano bhadra kratvo yantu vishvata. Ano bhadra kratvo yantu vishvata. What does it mean? Let the noble thoughts, let the noble things come to us from all the universe. We will accept it and we will follow it. So anyway, British come and the problem begins. Please believe. Of course, problems were there. Feudal society itself is a problem. Lagan itself is a problem. That is the severest source of exploitation. On the top of it, British come to India to colonize the country. Colonize means what? What did the British do coming to India? Why they came to India? Trade and something more strong and with angry words from young people. Plunder. Excellent. Plunder. They took away the raw materials and wealth of this country. So one question I want to ask you. Before British, many Muslim dynasties ruled this part of the subcontinent at different points. Please note that India did not, no king ruled in the whole of India at any point of time. Am I clear? Please note that India came to be through the freedom movement. India came to be, we will see that, India came to be through the freedom movement, to say that earlier times there were kingdoms, right? Now in these kingdoms, when we see British come, they plundered, took away the wealth from here. So my question was, the Muslim kings who ruled some part of the country, where did they take away the wealth from here? From here, where did they take away? Kabul, Kandahar, Makkah, Medina, or nowhere? Nowhere. They lived here, died here, became the part of this earth. And what about British? The rule was being conducted from London. Wealth was being taken to England. So please note there is a difference. And once the British came, three major changes took place. Now what are the three major changes took place? One is that they have to take away the raw materials. Now raw materials, if they have to take to England, first they will have to take the materials to the port city. Port city like ours, Bombay, port city. And for that, earlier, how was the transport? Earlier transport was what I'll call bullock cart, horse cart. In place of that, British brought in railways. Am I right? Rail. So just remember it as rail. Second thing they brought in was faster means of communication. How were people sending letters earlier? Pigeons. Hello. Pigeons were never carrying official letters. They were carrying only love letters. Let me do. Anyway, fine. Okay. So British thought this is a very slow method. Pigeons are not going to do our work. So let's start that telephone, telegraph, and what I call postal system, which can be summarized as mail. First was rail. Second is mail. And when people rebelled against them, where were they put? Jail. Excellent. These are the three major changes which the British brought in. Now with this, three new classes come into being. Now them I call as a rising classes. First is the group of businessmen industrialists. Businessmen industrialists, Tata, Birla, Bajaj, Singhania, Dalmia. Now to explain their work, of course you know what Tata is doing. Everything Tata, right from morning to evening you have Tata. But one interesting thing, you are studying in a Tata Institute again, more than that. But one interesting thing, I guess, I don't know whether it is right or wrong, how did Tata family got the name Tata, right? Because these Parsis are very wonderful names, Daru wala, soda wala, butter wala, lakdi wala, kela wala, okay. How did Tata got the name? I guess, Tata family people were collecting the raw materials, supplying it to the British by getting it loaded on the ships in Bombay. And when the ship was going, captain used to be standing on the deck. Rest of the story, you know. Anyway, fine. Okay, wonderful. So, rising classes, first group, businessmen, industrialists. The second group which comes up, those people who work in the factory. And these are the people, workers. Earlier, labor power was tied to the land. Now it got released from the land and became working class. And the third group was ours. Ours means modern educated classes. Earlier, madrasa was there, Gurukul was there, but this was not a suitable thing for British administrators because British officers were coming from London. But their assistants had to be created from here. So modern education and the modern educated classes, these are the rising classes. And the other classes which were there, to them I will call as a declining classes. Sorry, just a minute.